We could go ahead and maybe do some introductions and kind of talk about how this is going to go. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so hello everybody, and welcome to the Comedians with the Disabilities Act. That is a great lead-in right there to let you know that it is that I stutter and you have shitty internet. Both of those things can be true. So that is a great start to let you know that my name is Nina G, and I am the San Francisco Bay Area's only stuttering stand-up comic, and I'm going to be your host. And I am going to do my set in a little bit. But before that, I wanted to do some introductions to the comics as well as say a little bit about how this is going to go and establish some ground rules, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Let's go.
Michael Beers, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Michael Beers. I am a comedian advocate from Missoula, Montana.
Nice.
All right. Thank you, Mike. And talking about Montana, John, can you introduce yourself?
I'm John Howard. I'm also more of an advocate from Montana, and I help run a community center that we have here.
Bass. If you don't know bass is the coolest thing ever. Maybe if we're lucky. Actually, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about bass now? And sorry,
Okay,
John,
yeah.
you introduced it, and I'm asking Mike to...
His speech is better, so I understand.
Actually, John, if you could get the sign and maybe put it up behind you. Like that would be.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
Okay, I'll start the story. So, BASE is a program of an independent living center here in Montana, Summit. And it is a all abilities community center. So we call it WOW programming, so with or without disabilities. The reason we call it BASE is very elementary. It's everybody's played some version of tag or made up a game as a kid. And very often the first thing you do when you start a game is you establish base. So base could be the monkey bars, it could be the couch. But universally it means whenever this game, whatever it is, gets to be too much for me, the understanding is if I put my hand on this spot, you can't mess with me. I can take a breath, I can make a plan. I can use that time to be prepared to go back to the game. And one of the basic rules is that you can never stay there, but you can always come back. So the very simple idea that started the project was, wouldn't it be nice if life is the game? We knew adults of any age knew where to run and put their hand and be safe. And with the understanding that in this space, I don't have to wear my hypothetical mask. And I can be a teacher or a student and I can be creative. But whatever I gain from this time at this space, I have to go back to the game. And hopefully the time here has helped with that. In an effort to do that, we have a lot of cool programming from all abilities yoga classes to improv. We teach communication through improv as well as just performance-based improv. We have a wrestling group. We do art projects. It's a lot of fun. And all of our employees are people from our programs or students that we've met through the center. So we also try to do some employment mentoring as well.
And you guys host improv and open mics, and now a lot of services are also online, so people can join you from anywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been one of the unintended but kind of cool consequences of being more virtual is that people can join us from wherever over Zoom. And yeah, when we have time, if we have any questions, we'll put a link in the chat probably to So if you're interested or have any questions, we'd be happy to facilitate that.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you guys, and thanks for all the great work that BASE does. And also, just to mention this, because I know that a lot of the disability advocates here come out of YLF, which is the Youth Leadership Forum, and it is an awesome program, and it's produced a good number of disabled comics, including Michael Beers. So be careful, because you teaching advocacy may result in a stand-up comic, which we have here. So
YLF is definitely a great way.
Yes, Dave, can you introduce yourself, Mean Dave?
Yeah, I certainly can. My name's Mean Dave, just a nickname, short for Meaningful David. And I am a stand-up comedian who's currently sitting down. And yeah, and I've been a friend of Nina's and a comedian for about 10 years. And as well known Michael in that time and stuff. So, yeah.
And also we have Jade, who is going to be joining us. She's running a little bit late, but she will be here soon. And we are all going to perform for you, and then we're going to do a Q&A. So we look forward to your questions. And as we perform, I just want to say a couple of things about that. One is that we love to hear your laughter. It is awesome and great, but we don't want to hear your background noise. So we will mute you if that is the case, but we welcome you to laugh. Also, we welcome your comments in the chat, not on the video while we're doing comedy, but on the chat. So if you heckle us, please heckle us in the chat, and we hope that you don't heckle us. But if you have questions, or if you want to show your appreciation, you want to do some LOLs, or you want to quote a joke that you especially liked, we really, really, really appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start and tell you a little bit about myself, or actually about this show. I am, this is the Comedians with the Disabilities Act show, and I joined the group way back. It started about 8 years ago in Sacramento, and the original group was Michael O'Connell, who had passed away a few years back, but he was the father of the show, and Steve Danner and Eric Me, who have they have a lot of other things in their life, so they aren't doing comedy as much. But starting off, I stutter, and I also have dyslexia, and people, because Michael used a wheelchair, and Steve was and Steve is a little person, and Eric is blind, and people would always say, you know, since you stutter and have dyslexia, those aren't real disabilities, and you shouldn't be in that comedy troupe. And I would tell them, when they said this, I would quote from the Americans with the Disabilities Act that says, a disability is a physical or mental impairment that substantially results in having to deal with assholes.
Coronavirus.
So, I'm pretty sure that qualifies. And again, we appreciate your feedback in the chat. So thank you very much. Okay. Then also, you know, a lot of times if you have a disability, then you will appreciate this next one. Okay, Dave, I'm going to need your help here. Ready?
Hello, Dave.
How many disabled people does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
1 to screw it in, and 5 able-bodied people to say, you are such an inspiration. So I know that many of you may experience that. And for me, I have a YouTube that I would love for you all to check out. And not necessarily for the content, but for the comments, the YouTube comments of a female comedian who stutters. Oh my God, the comments. There's things like, you should really try weed for that speech problem of yours. Yeah, because this would go much better if I were more paranoid. Okay. And the thirsty, that's the other one. Most of the comments are, I want to see your boobs, mostly that. But recently this guy saw a video of me doing stand-up comedy, and he wrote, "This is the bravest thing I have ever seen." I just want to be clear. The bravest thing this guy's ever seen is me doing stand-up comedy. And I just want to say, in your face, COVID health professionals, in your face. Because
Hello, guys.
who's brave? Put their lives on the line to help others? No. It's me, stuttering dick joke teller.
Just you.
That's
Yeah.
Thank
Fuck
you.
the coronavirus. Fuck the coronavirus.
Okay, Nuke, we'd love to hear you in the chat. So go ahead and type those in because sometimes that flow kind of interrupts us, especially when we have speech impairments. So there you go. But we really appreciate all questions and comments and LOLs in the chat, along with your audible laughter. All right. So a couple other things about being a person who stutters is, a lot of times in doing like after shows, people tell me that I'm faking my stuttering, like it's for comedic effect. And I just want to be very clear. I have a rule that I don't fake my stuttering, and I don't fake my orgasms, no matter how long either of those two things take. Okay? And they can both take hella I don't think I have to finish the sentence. You heard me when I said dyslexia, so you know how that's gonna go. So anyway, stuttering and dyslexia have a lot in common, because if the other person would just shut up and stop interrupting me, I'd finish a lot faster. So there you go.
I have coronavirus.
So, okay, corona, we know. Okay. Oh, Dave. Okay.
Do this one on
couple
Instagram.
is having a disability. There's this thing that happens. When you have a disability, suddenly you will meet someone and they suddenly have a PhD in the thing you have. Oh my God. I get advice all the time, like just slow down and breathe. Because in the 30 plus years I've been stuttering, I've never thought of that. And I guess I haven't been breathing this entire time. But I always get this very strange advice, and it's because people don't understand stuttering. And what it is there is a difference on the left side. Right here, left side, there's an area called Broca's area. That is the expressive part of the brain. And what happens is when we talk, we have like a difference in that area. And when we sing, we don't. So when we sing or we use a voice, and in fact, my favorite example of a person who stutters was Marilyn Monroe, who, by the way, if you're a person who stutters, why the fuck would you give yourself a double M name? I don't know why. But that is why she talked the way she did. That's why Marilyn Monroe talked like this, because if you talk like this, you can speak from the right side of your brain instead of the left. And there you go. You don't stutter anymore. And I was once telling this to a guy that I was talking to, and I did the Marilyn voice, and he said this: "That's very sexy. Perhaps you should talk like that all the time." Which I was like, no, that's okay. I think that I'd rather stutter. So just one of the many things that I get as a person who stutters. And I think, I might do a little bit more afterwards, but now that I think we've kind of flushed out some of that audience out there, and also, okay, couple things before I introduce our next comic. One is we really appreciate all your feedback, and I see that the person who was interrupting us a lot is I don't think they're here now, so I think we're all good. I think we're good. And the other thing is that we are doing the show for free, and we welcome any donations that you would like to make to the comics. And we have two ways that you can do that. One is through the Venmo, and that is at Nina G Comedian, and the other is Mean Dave's PayPal, which is at wolfmanrex@hotmail.com, and we will make sure that all the comics get a piece of that. So we really appreciate that. Thank you, Dave, for posting that. And with that, I am going to introduce our next comic. I see his name up there, but I don't see him. I think that's because he's going to be making a big appearance. Everybody, John Howard! Yay!
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is a really big deal. I'm happy to be here, squatting over my computer, telling you jokes. It's going to be great. I'm just going to dive right into it today. I happen to have a lazy eye, and this has really always been interesting for me because people always ask, they're like, does your lazy eye, does it dip in? Does it dip out? And I'm like, no, it's like an overly anxious kid in a grocery store. It just wanders the fuck off. It needs a leash. At the same time, people also ask me, they're like, well, which eye is lazy? And I'm like, that's easy. It's the one that's not looking at you. It's the one that looks like it is searching for the emergency exit on the side of my goddamn eye socket. That is the one that is lazy. At the same time, I have a power from this lazy eye. I can see I have a large peripheral. All right, so I basically can see everything in widescreen. In the Middle Ages, I'd have been the closest thing they had to a motion detector. It had just been me on the top of a castle, shining a light every time something moved. But it also has a disadvantage at the same time. I have no depth perception, so don't ask me to parallel park your car. I'm going to mess that shit up. Also, I am the worst person on your employee softball team. I will swing at that ball for days, and I won't be able to hit it. In fact, one time I was actually swinging at it so hard and so fast, and I still couldn't hit shit. Finally, the umpire comes up to me and he's like, John, I think you're drunk. I'm gonna boot you out of here. And I was like, okay, listen, Todd, I would punch you in the face right now if I knew how far away you were from me. Like Nina, I am also dyslexic. So that means I confuse like letters and words. Don't ask me to proofread your paper. That's just going to be a train wreck. But it also means that I have given the pizza guy the wrong address to my house over 15 times. I look like an asshole. I even look like an asshole when I go to like an ethnic food restaurant. I look like a racist dick because I'll be like, I would love the Saskatchewan chicken, please. Now, that is not a dish at an Asian restaurant. That is a province in Canada. What I meant to say was Szechuan, but guess who looks like a racist asshole and getting spit in their food? And if you write in cursive and expect me to, how do I put this, read your name, don't. If you write in cursive, you have a better chance of peeing in the snow and writing your name there and having me read it than even trying to get it to do cursive. So please don't do that. We're also celebrating the ADA, which is really great, but there's also some other things coming up that are really big. On August 26th is International Women's Equality Day, which is awesome. It just happens to be on the same day as National Dog Day.
Oh.
Now that doesn't seem too equal to me, does it? No, that'd be like if there was like a National Stand-Up Comic Day on the same day as Crazy Homeless Preacher Day. It's just not. Yes, no, not at all. Some of you have heard this. I'm from Montana, and here in Montana, we kind of have a different way of parenting. I'm also a parent of 3. People don't really understand. For example, I remember my wife and I both do comedy, and we once got booked in New York to go to a comedy club, and we brought our 6-week-old baby with us. And as soon as we got there, the woman's like, "Whoa, you can't bring a baby in here." And I'm like, "Okay, listen, miss, we are from Montana. We bring our babies everywhere. We bring our babies to orgies and executions. This bar is like a home. It's no big deal." And then it was so funny because the woman did not understand babies. She's like, "It's an adult show. What if he repeats some of the material?" You're like, "He's 6 weeks old. He doesn't even know what his fucking hands are. There is no way that he is going to repeat any of this material." I love Montana, but there's definitely some weird stuff going on. For example, people like to dad shame you. I was walking with my young son in a stroller the other day, and this woman goes, "Oh my God, look at you. You look like a mom with that baby." I was like, "Or a fucking dad, thank you." I was like, and it was so funny. I was allowing one of my sons to run on the sidewalk the other day, and this cop pulled up and was like, "Hey, are you keeping an eye on that baby?" And I was like, "Whoa, I have a lazy eye. I've been monitoring this baby pretty damn well. In fact, I've also been monitoring you for the last block and a half, and that's why I put my joint down before you got here." I also have a giant hernia in my stomach, which means that I sometimes will just puke blood if I eat something spicy or I get nervous. So I have to use medical marijuana to suppress it. And that is great. It is super helpful. It's allowed me to get off things, but it is the most dangerous thing in the middle of COVID to get high and watch your kids. And the reason for this is they start to learn your smoking schedule. So after their nap, you will go in and be like, "Oh, are you up?" And they'll know you got high during their nap, and they'll just scream stuff at you like, "Ice cream burritos." Hell yes. Now, another thing that is also very dangerous is when you're watching your kids and you're kind of stoned, it can be super dangerous because you might think that it is super funny to play the 1985 hit "Party All the Time" by Eddie Murphy in front of your kids. What you don't realize is that they will like that video and you have to watch that shit every day for 6 months. I would like to thank all of you for having me today for the ADA comedy show. Our fight is not over. Keep advocating, keep voting. Thank you everyone for having me.
Nice work, John.
Awesome. And yeah, if you haven't checked it out, that Eddie Murphy video is pretty great. I believe there's a lot of tight pants and stuff like that in there. And everybody, next, it is one of my bestest friends, and he was even a bridesmaid in my wedding. So everybody, I'd like you all to give it up big for Mean Dave.
Yeah, Mean Dave.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to prove to everybody that she's not lying. That is the bridal shower picture right there. You'll notice I'm right there in the bridal shower. Luckily, the photo, I don't know, unless my image blows up for everybody in if you have the spotlight view or speaker view or whatever, you might be seeing that people are, I don't know, flipping the bird. But as I was told, this is a show for adults here. So also, I want to thank people for just, again, some people might be wondering, just looking at me, what exactly is this gentleman's disability? As far, a lack of hygiene and clearly bad taste in music is not covered under the ADA. But no, I'm actually, I learned this through my friendship with Nina. My disability is that I am a recovering addict / alcoholic. I've been clean and sober for, it'll be 7 years this September. So that's been fun. Thank you. Thanks for, I see the hands and all that. Really appreciate the support, because from the bottom of my heart, it has been a boring 6.5 to 7 years. And I kid, that's just a joke. It has not been boring. There's been a lot of excitement, as you can see. I got to be a bridesmaid. That's clearly proof right there. No, and the other thing is too, I'm probably, my disability is the only one where I can walk into a bar and just yell at everybody that they're being ableist, drinking alcohol in front of me. Or if they're doing drugs, if I see a homeless man, and he's smoking crack on the street, I'm like, quit being so ableist in front of me, sir. Or let me join you, one of the two. So yeah, it's just, it's something I learned from knowing Nina, because naturally that's one of the things that I learned about it through just describing, as I've come to learn my disease of self-centeredness and compulsion and all this stuff. Basically, you could just say my disease is being an American, if you will, but it's just with drugs and alcohol. But at the same time, when I described it, sort of in just learning how my brain operates and how I interact with the world and stuff, that's when Nina, ever the intelligent one, looked it up under the Americans with Disabilities Act and found out that yes, people that are in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction are covered under the ADA, which I'll tell you what. I've been to so many meetings, and nobody knows this shit. Nobody at the meetings knows this stuff, and it's weird because it's this weird catch-22 of where, because of being covered under the ADA, we're entitled to certain rights, to accommodations, if you will. Our meetings are essentially accommodations, and on the flip side of that, our 12-step program teaches us that we are not supposed to feel entitled about anything. So it's a really weird kind of fine line that we've had to walk, because once we start saying that we have rights and stuff like that, is one step away from just like, well, I have a right to go toke up or something, whatever. So it's just it's the strangest thing that I've been learning, but I've been telling people about it, teaching them about it, especially in this strange time of the coronavirus, shelter in place, because meetings have either been online. People have been concerned about whether or not in-person meetings are dangerous and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been a very weird kind of few months. Me personally, though, I couldn't be happier during this shelter in place. I never leave. I never leave just except to do comedy shows. And the weird thing is, I used to be a video game tester for about 14 years. I used to test video. That was my job. I used to play video games, and I got fired from a job playing video games. That's what drug and alcohol addiction will do. But here's the thing. The last job I got let go from, I wanted to be let go from it. I hated working in video games after 14 years, because when you work around people who just press buttons all day and they're referring to everything they're doing in the first person in a video game, they keep saying like, oh, I got 30 kills, or I killed 50 people in this game or whatever. And it's weird, because the only thing really that you're killing by pressing buttons for long periods of time is your full potential in life. That's the only thing you're killing. And I confirmed that. So I got out of that industry. I got into stand-up comedy in the hopes of turning it into a full-time job eventually. It's not a dream of mine to be on TV or to do anything else. I basically just want to make a minimum wage living, being a loudmouth jackass, and I've succeeded. But the weird thing is, after doing stand-up comedy I've been doing it 10 years. I've been a full-time professional at it for about 3 years, a little over 3. And the weirdest thing is, thanks to the coronavirus, again, I got into this job so I would never have to work behind a computer ever again. And thanks to coronavirus, I now get to do this job behind a computer, which is just sort of just a strange hell that to live in. But it's really not that bad. Obviously, it's I get to also see a lot of my friends and all that stuff, all from the privacy. Like I said, I like to start off my sets normally by saying it's great to be back in my bedroom, but I didn't get to do that today. But also, it's strange. I had to learn the hard way a few different times. Getting sober was not easy when you're stuck in the disease of addiction. First time I tried to quit drugs and alcohol was because I wanted to sober up because I got asked to babysit my 5-year-old nephew at the time, and it wasn't to set a good example or anything. It was just because my nephew was only 5 years old and he couldn't handle his drugs and alcohol enough to keep up with Uncle Dave. I don't know if any of you have ever partied with 5-year-olds, but they party like little girls. They're just crying. They're just like, I don't want to do drugs, Uncle Dave. It's bedtime. I have kindergarten tomorrow. Some of us have responsibilities and didn't move back into their parents' house. And I'm like, well, that's fair, little man, but there's a pile of that shit left. And Uncle Dave is high as a kite right now. Can't finish it all. Doesn't like to see good shit go to waste. And if you want Uncle Dave to sneak you free Cokes at the titty bar next week, I suggest you get to work, son. That shit's not doing itself anytime soon. So. But now that even though I'm going on 7 years clean and sober, just so you know, and I'm I am still available to babysit. If anybody needs a babysitter, you just got to buy the drugs for your kids. I'm not supplying this drug habit. And the second time that I knew I was having a problem was because friends like to play pranks when you pass out, and I didn't really, some friends will, classic is they'll draw a penis on your face. Another classic, that I used to hear about, especially if you're, passed out around a lot of dude friends. Some of them will actually take out a live member, put it around your passed out face, take a picture of it, post it on Instagram and Facebook, and you get to see who your friends really are when they click like, and my friends, I wish I had friends like that, because my friends thought it was funny when I passed out to bury me alive in the city of Jerusalem, which is an expensive prank, but let me tell you, it's well worth it when you look like the most famous dude who came back to life in that part of the world. It really freaks them out when you dig yourself up at 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon in Jerusalem. People don't know whether to stone you or shoot you, depending on their level of access to technology in that part of the world. So, and that one's clearly a joke. No one buried me in Jerusalem. I just, people used to always joke that I looked like Jesus, which I feel I don't. I don't think Jesus was 5'9". But that's just my own impression. But I get a lot of that stuff, this whole look-alike thing, just for being brown and having long hair and a beard. And we can go down the list. I'm not Jesus. I'm not Charles Manson. I'm not Rasputin. I am not the guitar player from Soundgarden or the bass player of Metallica. I'm not the actor Jimmy Smits with long hair and a beard. I actually have a picture of that proving what that would look like here. That's not me. All right, I do not look like that. So I'm not. What else? Let's see. I'm not the actor Jimmy Smith long hair. I'm not. I'm running out. I forget. I'm not a Mexican Russell Brand, a Mexican Allman Brother, I'm not a Mexican Rob Zombie. I'm not Mexican Steve Aoki, whoever the fuck that is. If I'm wearing a backwards hat, I am not Mexican Silent Bob, aka Roberto de Silencio. I don't remember what it was. I'm not Osama bin Laden's courier in the movie Zero Dark 30. That's another one. I am not Mexican Lieutenant Dan with his legs grown back. That's one from Forrest Gump for fans of that. But if a woman's attractive, and I assume just has low standards, yeah, whatever. I'll be Aquaman for a day. I can deal with that one. You know, even though I think that's more of an insult on Jason Momoa. I don't understand. You know, how it's, you know, again, he's like 6 foot, sexy. I'm 5 foot. You know, everybody calls me homeless. That's pretty much it. But beyond that, what else is new? You know, it's great in this time. I never thought in the age of coronavirus, you know, since the shelter in place, it's really gotten me to appreciate things that I didn't realize I'd be nostalgic for. And primarily, I never thought I'd ever be, you know, I never thought I'd be nostalgic for the last time I used a restroom in public. And because now you can't do that. You can't use public restroom anywhere to coronavirus. And I remember the last time I did was at a Safeway in Sunnyvale over here in the Bay Area. It was the weekend before the shelter in place started. I went into to go use the men's room. I was going pee in the urinal. And for the gentlemen here, if you've ever used a urinal, or if the ladies, if you've ever brought a shiwi into a men's room, which I've learned about since doing this joke, you know, if you've ever used a urinal and you're peeing, and someone walks up to you or walks up to the urinal next to you and starts peeing next to you, sometimes it gets a little weird if your pee stream isn't as strong as the person next to you, or if they're peeing, or if, you know, you're not peeing as strong next to them, and it's kind of this weird like audio trick that, you know, I don't know. It's some kind of pissing contest, literally, and you know, it gets competitive. And so, anyways, on this particular day, I was peeing. Somebody walked up. They started peeing, and we were peeing even streams. Nobody noticed anything. Nobody got insecure. It was fine. But then we were both finishing up. Went behind us to the sinks, which were right side by side, and started washing our hands. And I could really tell that the guy next to me was washing his hands way harder than I was. He was slapping soap all over the place, splashing, just, you know, water getting everywhere. I just had to look over. I was like, who is this guy? And I looked over, and it was this young Asian man with the look of terror in his eyes as he kept glancing over at me. And I forgot that in the news that weekend was when Donald Trump kept calling the coronavirus the Chinese virus. And I understood exactly what this young man's fears were. And so I washed my hands, I dried them, and I turned to this young man, put my hands on his shoulders, looked him directly in the eye, and I said, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." I gave him a big hug, all right? Let him know. We had a nice goodwill hunting moment, if you will. And then it turns out we both came down with coronavirus after that. You know, we're all good now. That was back in March. I'm all clear now, so we're all good. So I believe that is my time. You've been a wonderful audience, and thank you very much.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave, I have this book here, Once Upon an Accommodation.
That's right.
Book about learning disabilities. Can you say a little bit about it?
I drew it.
I wrote it.
She wrote it. I drew it. It was a wonderful collaboration that I'm very grateful. I wished I was when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist. And I had a horrible teacher that killed that dream when I was a child, and got into other art forms and stuff, which then led me to meeting Nina G. And she liked my stick figure drawings. I always used to like drawing stick figures throughout my entire life and stuff. And she liked them, and then she thought it would be a great idea to have me draw her children's book here, which is a book for all ages, really. And I myself learned a lot about not just LDs, but the accommodations in the 504. What a 504 is and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate it. When I read this, I was like, okay, or when I wrote this, I was like, okay, what are these images in my head? And it was like a punk rock Richard Scary. If anybody understands who that is, but I love the illustrations, and very fortunate to have Dave helping me out there. And it is available on the
Amazon.
Evil Empire. Sorry,
Okay.
it's the only place that it is available other than our speaking gigs and comedy shows. But it's right there. And Dave put it up in a prettier way. So, okay, everybody. Next we have, oh, and by the way, me, Dave, and our next performer are all in the Bay Area, where we don't have air conditioning and it's super hot. Jade actually might, I don't know, but it's super hot. So please, we will need all of your energy to pull us through because of the heat. So everybody, please welcome Jade.
Yeah,
Jade, I
Jade.
forget how to say your last name.
Thank you, Nina. No, they don't give us air conditioning in low-income housing units. It's true. What up, Michigan? Michigan. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be saying I'm sorry a lot today. It's internalized guilt. I am very hot. I'm very hot. I'm a mess. Luckily here in California we do have drinking water. I'm sorry, Michigan. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I heard that somebody told me my personal care assistant told me 10 minutes before the show that people from Michigan don't get easily offended like people from San Francisco did. So I wanted to try out the joke, and I wanted to try it out. I got it grown. Now I understand. It probably doesn't help. Before the pandemic, my personal care assistant was a professional dominatrix, so she kind of had a big job switch. So maybe she was in a different environment. I don't know. So anyway, coronavirus is cool. It's a cool one. I am very happy about the plague. Now you able-bodied get to finally know what it feels like to be alone, celibate, and appearing diseased. Don't worry, when I finally get to see you, when my keepers finally let me out of the house, I will cough directly into your butthole. It'll be great. They say that's the quickest way to transmit coronavirus. It's true, I did lose my job. I lost all my jobs. Tried to get a new job. I tried phone sex for a while. Like a while as in like 3 days. I figured if sex feels like work, I wouldn't want to have it as much. So I went the phone sex route. I had sex with a 40-year-old Australian man. It was great. It was wonderful. We were in the throes of digital passion, and he's all whispering into my ear through my encrusted phone speaker. He's like, "Oh my God, my dick is so big," and I was like, "Well, it's apparently not big enough to span the Pacific Ocean, so it must not be that big. It doesn't standards are different now. We have to live in the new normal. If your dick is not long enough to go across the Pacific Ocean." Anyway, happy anniversary of the ADA. I'm disabled. How disabled are you? Just kidding. I am so disabled that I was masturbating and I dropped my vibrator and it landed in that very special spot that every female body has, and it was stuck there. I couldn't move it out of the way. I couldn't lift my arms because I am disabled. So for the next hour, I felt like I was in this really weird BDSM scenario where I was the dom and the sub. It was bizarre. It was like I was alternating, between all these different feelings and emotions and phrases like no, stop, I can't take it anymore, and shut up, you'll come when I tell you to come. It was bizarre. Anyway, That's right. You too can master the art of topping your own bottom. Called being cosmically alone. I can't read the audience. If you have children with you, tell them it's Monday and to go back to school. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not going stir crazy at all. I'm not going stir crazy at all. This is my normal way of being. This is how I operate in the world. This is my disability. Please accommodate me. What if this is how I had to be all the time? It'd be fun. I miss bars. I better not tell this joke. Everyone doesn't like my negative humor. This is San Francisco. This is the Bay Area. I'm sorry. Nina G was saving the best for last. She's like, oh, the Bay Area. But after my set, don't worry. After my set, it's gonna be great because it'll be. Somebody left. God damn it, Zoom. Zoom is like a real place. It tells you when someone leaves.
Someone just said that you are amazing, and I lit you a minute ago. So heads up.
I'm not telling my inspiration porn joke, Nina. I don't want to. I don't want to.
I think you want.
I do. I will end by saying we have a subway here in San Francisco. If you want to know more about San Francisco, and I was on the subway, and I miss the subway. I miss little moments. I miss when the little kid on the BART train, he wants to know why you're in the wheelchair so bad, but you don't feel like touching it, because normally you find these questions from children very endearing, but today you're just not having it. And the dad, he's trying his gosh darndest to explain why without sounding offensive. And by God, he's doing a noble job. And he tells a euphemistic part truth. And the kid's just not buying it because that's a smart fucking kid. And you are cringing nonetheless, hoping that they think that you're wearing headphones so that they don't know that you can hear them, so that you don't feel embarrassed for them. Well, the dad mainly, the kid don't give a flying fuck, and you're trying to get the music going because you don't want to process anymore, but YouTube doesn't play background music, so you go to the App Store and you download YouTube Music, and when it finally downloads, you find out YouTube Music only does background play under a premium subscription, and the conversation between the kid and the dad, it's just well underway, and no background play makes for a pointless fucking music app, and you got shit to do, so you resort to the same boring music in your library that you listened to since you were 13, only to find that half of the tracks are missing and they're glitched, and I have this thing where I can't listen to incomplete albums. It bothers me. Thank you. My name is Jade Terrio. I'm disabled. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jay. Nice. Wonderful.
Jade, I don't know if you are looking at the chat, but both Robin and Elaine have humbly asked that you tell the inspiration porn joke.
Okay, so there's this idea that you see something really heartfelt and inspiring, and for some reason it makes you feel good about being an able-bodied fuck. So, for example, I saw a headline of a woman in a wheelchair. She goes into a fast food restaurant. She orders her food. The fast food worker offers to feed her food, and some guy films it and puts it online, and everyone's all like, oh. And that was not my first reaction. My first reaction was, what was the cripple planning on doing once she ordered her food? She knew she couldn't feed herself. What she's gonna do, just go up to it and like mash her face into it? No, she fucking planned this. That diabolical motherfucking bitch. She is the villain in this story. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. So then I went to the doctor. He re-diagnosed me. Apparently, I'm just an asshole. No, I think that woman's a bitch. But then I reevaluated. I took a Valium. I addressed my disability, and I said, no. This is really important for the future of disability rights in the service industry. I can't wait till one day roll into a sex shop and get laid. And then if you see this happening to me, please film it so that we can make some real inspiration porn. Get that shit right. You've had enough of me. My name is Jade. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Jade.
Thank you,
Nice.
Jade. Well worth the request.
Yeah.
Oh.
Only for you. Only because Nina told me to. I do whatever Nina says.
Okay.
Well, no, it's actually what Elaine and
Yes.
Robin said. So thank you guys. See
Yeah.
how that works. And check out the chat. I am done giving you any accolades, Jade, so you better look at the chat. So anyway, we are on to our last comic, and then we are going to do a Q&A. If you enjoyed any part of this and you're able to, we would you can donate to the comics and the information is in the chat in Venmo and in PayPal. So please check that out. But with that, without any further ado, from Missoula, Montana, everybody, Michael Beers.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Nice. Okay. I want to first let's give a round of yellow Zoom hands to the comics that have been before me. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for having me here in Michigan for the 30th anniversary of the American Dental Association. I'm really quite honored. I have an Oral-B electric toothbrush. Takes care of me every day. I will say, because the topic du jour, let's put my hand in the shot. The topic du jour is COVID, right? So there are things I don't miss in this world. Not being out as much in public, the opportunity for people to lay hands on me and pray is much less. Not that it isn't always, it's not always a bad thing, but I do remember pre-COVID, I was walking in front of a church, which I avoid actively, not for my own sake, but for the churches. And one of the priests happened to be walking the opposite direction on the sidewalk and stopped me right away and said, bless you, my son. Take comfort in knowing that there's a special place in heaven for people like you. And now as I get older and slightly more mature every day, I realize I'm not mad at this guy. For him and his life and his perspective, this is the right thing to do. But this asshole has to understand my perspective. When you tell me there's a special place in heaven for people like me, that's not fucking comforting. That pisses me off. Because then I have to live with the knowledge that there's a special place there too. So not only did I have to go up in that classroom and ride that bus and spend my entire adult life advocating for equity for people with disabilities, you're fucking telling me that when I die, I have to organize a protest, I have to call my senators, I have to advocate against segregation in fucking heaven. And when the rest of you all get to take the stairway, we have to fucking find money to pay for an elevator. God damn it. That doesn't happen as much. I do miss, like, summertime is a time of year when we hit the road. John and I hit the road doing comedy. I get to go see my friends in the Bay Area. And comedy road trips, they don't talk about them a lot on stage, but they are a lot of fun. They're boring, they're exciting, you're all over the place. I do remember last summer going up to Canada. for a road trip. We were behind this RV for, it must have been 3 weeks. And at a certain point, you can't help but start reading the bumper and reading this RV in particular had about 20 different bumper stickers. So I'm scrolling through these bumper stickers, and the first one that catches my eye is one that says zombie apocalypse preparedness. And to this Zoom, I say yes. Okay, so you think COVID is bad, zombies are going to be a little worse. Let's be prepared. So I keep scrolling down, and the very next bumper sticker infuriated me. Not because, you know, I want to get inherently political. Although Dave's joke about people bragging about their body counts reminded me of our president. The next bumper sticker said, and it was a pro-life sticker. Now, I'm not here to debate what your stance is on that, but I made John citizens arrest style. We pulled this RV over, and I pulled them out of the van, or the RV, and I said, fuck you. You can't have both these bumper stickers. Who are you to decide when I stop being human after I get bit? Is it right after I get bit? Is it 6 weeks after I get bit? If I'm a mother who's pregnant and then I get bit, what the fuck are your bumper stickers gonna do now? Gotta take one of them off. The other part that gets a little, and in Montana, this is true, you know, on a comedy road trip, or imagine any road trip, but we don't get to take road trips that aren't comedy related. You'll go through stretches of places where there is no variety in radio stations. So you have to choose between any number of country stations, Republican radio, or a Christian rock station that you'll listen to for about 15 seconds, thinking you found what you're looking for before they mention God, and you're like, fuck. So we settled on a country station, and I don't listen to a lot of country music unless bad things are happening in my life. It's quite a bit lately, actually. But when we were in the car, this song came on the radio. It was entitled Honky Tonk. It's from a while back, I'm told, but Donka. Now, I understand the premise of this song. And myself, I thought I was 10 years away from bitching about today's music. But this song, people are familiar with it. Maybe you can help me out in the chat. I understand that it's about booty. Okay, booty is a subject that deserves song. Like a good booty, regardless of gender, like is like an Etch-a-Sketch. When the person that owns it shakes it, the mind goes blank. So I understand why you would write a song about booty. But there's one line in this song, and it appears in the chorus, and I don't understand it. I'm pretty sure it's one of the answers to why the South will never rise again. But somewhere in the chorus, it says, "Uli, shut your mouth, slap your grandma." Michigan. What the hell does that mean? I'm 30-something years old. I've been creeping on booty half my life. Never once have I seen one so unbelievably great that my only instinct was to say, "Grandma, come here." I don't want to, I have to. Did you see the turd cutter on that person? And people, let's get real for a second. What the fuck kind of compliment is that? Is this really where we are in society? Remember poetry? Remember Shakespeare? Remember fucking Barry White? No, now we're at this place in history where you can be sitting across from your partner on a romantic night. You know, you haven't had one in a while, and you have your date voice on. which is 3 octaves lower than any other voice you ever use. And you're like, baby, I love you. And to prove that love, I didn't buy you flowers or candy. I didn't even buy you jewelry. Baby, our love runs so deep. I beat the shit out of my grandma last night. She was using a walker last week. She's in a wheelchair today. Because I love you. I will share with everybody out there. I am also disabled. My first memory of being a person with a disability in Missoula, Montana, I was about 10 years old. And it was one of those days where all you want to be doing is like picking your nose and eating boogers and watching cartoons. Like that was what I had on the agenda. But my mom says, no, we gotta go shopping. I was like, okay, all right, whatever, your mom, okay. So I'm walking downtown Missoula, and you know when you're pouting, like, you know, you don't want to be out in public, or you don't want to put on a fucking mask. People are idiots. I was looking down at the ground and at the sidewalk, feeling really bad about myself. And I don't know what inspired me to look up at that moment, but I did. And I was downtown Missoula, and when I did, I looked up and I saw a sign, like a beacon of hope. It said secondhand store. Yes, finally a store that has what I need. So I ripped away from my mother. I went into the counter. I found the guy. I said, I want one. And this man offered me a toaster. I said, no, man, I got toast. What I need from you is a second hand. Do you have anything in a right that I could try on? And then he laughed and threw me out the store. But I do want to thank everybody. I want to end with one story that I really like to tell, because it is, I think, indicative of the work we've done as a community of people with disabilities and people without, because it takes all kinds of people to get where we need to go. And what we do isn't often tangible. You know, we don't tear down, you know, things or build walls or mow grass. So it can feel like at the end of the day, when you're tired and you're exhausted, you can look around and say, why am I tired and exhausted? I can't see that change. So this story, which also happened in Missoula, probably 3 years ago, to me was very indicative of the work that we've done for decades, and that we continue to this day. So it begins in the grocery store. In Missoula, I'm in the produce aisle, and I had a head of kale under the little arm, which is a city statute that you buy kale. And in my left hand, I was reading the nutrition facts on the salad dressing, because I'm over 30 and I do that shit now. And unbeknownst to me, a woman about my mother's age, I'm not going to say what that is on the internet, about my mother's age, comes up to me and pops my personal space bubble right away. She gets right up in my face and she says, without any introduction, do you need assistance? Now, again, from her perspective in life, this is not only the right thing to do, she feels good about doing it. So, again, as the mature adult you see before you on your screen, my response has become, no, thank you, I'm fine. Two things happened in this moment. One, the person feels good for having offered. Two, I feel great because they usually leave. This woman did not, to her credit. She took a moment, she stepped a little closer to me, and repeated a little bit louder, do you need assistance? Now, as uncomfortable as I am in front of all of you on Zoom in my living room, one-on-one, if we've never met, I get really awkward really quick. So my first attempt to get rid of this person failed. And my fight or flight said run. So without saying anything to her, I ran down the aisle of the store to get out of the situation. But I was so nervous and I was so awkward. I tripped and I dropped the bottle of dressing. And as I ran down the aisle, I heard two things. I heard the bottle shatter on the ground. And then I heard this woman say in a very satisfied voice, "I knew you needed assistance." So here's the deal. I felt really small in that moment, which isn't unusual because I'm not very tall. But I felt even smaller. And as an adult, for better or worse, you can't carry around your binky or your blanket in public. Why? No one knows. So I went to get coffee at the local coffee shop to comfort myself. Short aside, why do we arbitrarily decide in life that once you reach a certain age, you can't have things that feel good anymore? Okay, short off ramp. Before COVID, I was staying at my sister's house. Both of my nieces are under the age of 10. I was in the guest room, which meant I used their bathroom. So that first morning I was in Portland, I woke up and all there was there was no toilet paper, there was only baby wipes. And there was no adult shampoo, there was only no-tear baby shampoo. Folks, that was the best morning I've had in 25 fucking years. Why is it that at a certain age we decide every morning I gotta start by crying in the shower and wiping my ass with low-grade sandpaper? The technology exists for all of us to have these things. Why do we deny ourselves? But I'm in the coffee shop, and I'm standing there in line, and this young parent with two 5-year-old kids is in front of me, and one of the 5-year-old boys sees this arm. Now, when a 5-year-old sees an arm on an adult that looks like a dinosaur, they get really interested. Their eyes get really big, and they start, they turn into ninjas. They start ducking behind tables. They hide behind their parents' leg, and they're like, "Oh, I've never seen one like that before." Now, again, when this happens, and the adult recognizes the child staring at my hand, or anybody in public, what is the general reaction? We've all been there. I've been on both sides of it. I get stared at. I spend a lot of time staring at other people. But the adult will say, will notice and scold the child and say, "Don't stare. That's not polite." Now, little known fact, some parents you'll see actually turn their kids away. Over 1,000 times a year, the parent is so flustered that they grab their kid too tightly and they turn him around too fast, severs the spinal cord. The kid ends up in a wheelchair, the kid gets stared at, and the whole fucking cycle repeats itself. I used to say that story is not true, or that part of it's not true, but in 2020, it's as true as anything you'll hear on your computer. So take it to the bank. So what surprised me, though, for the first time in my life, this mother did not scold her kids. She, with humility and respect, encouraged them to come closer to me. And she asked me, "Hey, can my boys ask you a question?" Now, I have every right to say no, but I don't think that moves us forward. So I said, "Sure." And I'll never forget it. They look up at me with their big brown eyes. And one says, "Dude, what's wrong with your hand?" And I gave him the 5-year-old answer, which is, "Son, I didn't eat my vegetables when I was a kid." No, the mother would have loved had I said that. I didn't say that. I said this is my index finger. I was born without a thumb, but the doctors knew I would need coffee when I was older, so they moved my index finger. And you could see the wheels turning. And after about 10 seconds, the little boy on my right took my little hand in his little hand, and he looked up at me and he said, "Dude, have you ever seen E.T.? That looks just like E.T.'s hand." Ouch. We talked about aliens for 30 minutes. We're friends on Instagram, and I got his mom's phone number. It didn't work out with the mother, but that's not the point of the story. But if we stick to the status quo, we're not teaching anybody anything. We're teaching everybody to ignore other human beings, and that's not where the ADA wants us to be.
It was deliberate.
Where we should be. So thank you all for being here, and especially for doing your part to have those conversations and to get us all a little closer to where we need to be.
Right. Thank you, Michael Beers. Give it up for us.
Woo! Yeah.
Michael, it's always so great to work with you. I'm so happy that that we're in COVID and I get to see you more now.
And
so
it's true.
I wish I could be there with you. I am going to ask all the comics to be ready to talk. We are going to chat, and we will take questions from the chat, or you can raise your hand. I'm going to ask the first question. And for me, one of the things that I'm always asked is, oh, as a disabled comic, it must be so therapeutic to do comedy, because comedy is the best medicine, and it just must be so nice to do that just to help you. And I resent that question when it's said that way, because disabled people don't do their art form for the therapy. We do it because we love it and we are good at it. And for me personally, oh yeah, and actually here, this is my book. So Stutterer Interrupted, the comedian who almost didn't happen. It's available everywhere, but in it I talk a lot about my experience, and I'd been wanting to be a stand-up comic since I was 11 years old and dreamt of it, but never did it because of my stuttering. But then started when I was 36, after I really challenged my own ideas and my own ableism to get up on stage. And I do it because it's the thing that I love the most. I've been a comedy fan since I was 4. I've been a stuttering dyslexic since I was 8. That's when those things became more apparent. So for me, it's the thing that I love, and that's why I do it. So out of the comments, who would like to answer that? Yes.
As a comedian from Montana, do they still say laughter is the best medicine since you guys legalized weed? Is that still a thing?
Well, it's not medicine anymore. It's now recreational, so we don't have to act like you have something in your eye. But if you do, that's fine too.
I don't think I do. Oh, something.
So, Mike, since you started it, what about you? Why do you do comedy?
I do comedy because it's a lot of fun. It is a way to get my ideas out there, because you do. I think I feel less isolated from the world by my disability than I do the way thoughts are organized in my head. So comedy was an opportunity to kind of get those thoughts out there and see what kind of reaction they get from people. And I was right. Other people don't think this way, but other people dig it that I do. So that's a ton of fun. And to be able to travel and hear other people don't talk about it a lot outside of comedians, but you are sharing your story, but being a comic really allows you to hear a lot of other people's stories, whether it's other comedians or audience members that come up to you after the show. And I really dig that part of it, just getting to know other people and hear those stories. is a big part of it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Jade, what about you?
So I got into comedy, I guess, because I've always wanted to pick an art focus. I was always very interested in the arts. My dad is a musician. I kind of wanted to go down that route, but I was doing speech and debate in high school, and the public speaking just kind of came more natural. And so, yeah, I mean, and I want to touch on the therapeutic point. Yeah, it's not, I mean, I think all art is therapeutic to a degree. I mean, for everyone, whether you're disabled or not disabled. So I guess there was a therapeutic aspect to it when I first started out, which is what got me into it. But it wasn't because I was disabled. It was because my parents were screaming at each other and throwing shit at each other, and that's when I wrote my first joke. So, that's really, I mean, it's got very little to do with the disability part, and it does at the same time, but that's a whole nother thing. So I don't know. I just like doing it. It's an art that I chose to pursue. So
Great, thank you. And John, why did you come upon comedy?
Well, I did improv for a very long time, and I always wanted to be like a comedy writer. But as you soon learn when you're dyslexic, like everyone laughs at you when you turn in screenplays. They're just like super dicks. So then immediately I was like, well, I have to transfer this skill to a different platform, and that is, well, I'm going to do stand up. And then on top of that, when I was thinking about doing it, I had an ex-partner who was like, you'll never be good at it. And that just really gave me the push to dive into it. When it comes to also therapeutic, I do say I do notice when I do comedy that there's something in my brain that unlocks. I don't know if it's like some chemical or something, but it really makes me feel more with it. And it really like helps me get up through the day and want to share my experience with everyone.
Cool. And I'm going to start doing the questions in a minute, so we are going to get to that. But Dave, why did you start comedy?
Because people resolved the nightmare of all my cool bands breaking up. Yeah, I like to entertain, but I love stand-up comedy, but I never wanted to be one. I know it's a lonely, depressing life. From being a fan of it, and then I had a band that had comedy somewhat in it, and thought I would help promote the band, and then the band broke up because they didn't like the world of comedy. So it's and people, like as John kind of said, I've always found that people have laughed at me all my life, like for whatever reason, and I thought it would be the ultimate revenge to try and make money off of people's desire to laugh at me. So, figure, win-win.
So, Dave, I'm going to have you do the first one, or the first response to what I'm going to ask, and then we'll open it up to the other comics. How is doing Zoom comedy different from the stage?
It's, completely different, just in that you're in your ultimate comfort zone doing something that is probably, that for comedians is most comfortable to be outside their comfort zone doing. Because everybody who's performed in stand-up has had to do it in places, we started open mics and whatnot, and you perform in places where there's distractions and whatever else. And then now you're doing it in a place where it's we're not getting immediate feedback the way that we're used to it. So we're not hearing things like unless their mics are on, and then sometimes you're even hearing other distractions. I call it stand-up comedy, the video game. That's pretty much how I look at it. Like, and it's because like a lot of comedians always they would poo-poo it at first, and I'm like, people enjoy it, and I enjoy entertaining people. It doesn't matter if it's through the computer or on a stage or whatever, and I enjoy the challenge. So I think that's more a credit of recovery too, keeping an open mind. So.
And also, Dave and I never wanted to host a show in real life, but I do on Zoom. and Dave is my co-host, and we do a show and tell. And for me, it's really hard to do stand-up on the screen, but I kind of feel like this is the prison workout, and and you have to kind of work out your stuff, and you have to continue to perform. But we do a show and tell show where I will bring an object on, and I'll talk about it and tell a story about it, or just some information about it, and then the other comics ask questions, and then we do the next comic. And I think it's interesting to see some of the new things that you might try out on Zoom, and that's been a benefit to me. So, and who else would like to add to that on Zoom shows?
I will. They're definitely different, and it takes a moment. I just did like my first ever within 6 months stand-up show outside, where you were able to like look at people in the eyes and read the audience. And you have to be comfortable with pauses. You have to be comfortable with like just moving on. You almost essentially change from like a live performer to like a YouTuber, and you have to be okay with all those things.
You know, and for me, what has been helpful is in the Bay Area, I've performed a lot in marijuana dispensaries. And the timing that you have with performing to people who are on weed and and on Zoom, it's the same thing, because you have that processing time built into it. And like one of my jokes is, oh, you guys needed 1.5 additional time to get that joke, because they do need extra time on Zoom and when you're performing to people who use weed. So it's an interesting process. Jade and Michael, you want to add anything?
I feel like yeah, I have a hard time calling it stand-up comedy. It's Zoom comedy. I think those are two very different forms and mediums. I feel like with stand-up, it's more like there's an active listening component where you tell a joke, audience laughs, tell another joke, audience laughs, adjust, you adjust accordingly, whereas Zoom is passive listening. We don't know that you're not doing the dishes and doing work and multitasking while you're listening, because there's no expectation to pay attention actively. So yeah, I agree that it is more like a YouTube podcast style. I do think there are a lot of little Easter eggs that I'd be interested in exploring. Like, I haven't delved into the backgrounds yet, or I think there's a lot of things you can do with camera angles, and there's more multimedia tricks that you can do in Zoom that are not possible with live stand-up. But at the same time, you do lose some physicality that is present in live stand-up. So, yeah, that's the difference.
And do you all like to have people seen and heard, or like we had the guy on earlier who was doing push-ups and trying to get attention. Do you have a preference of seeing people, not seeing people, getting feedback? Do you just want to have conviction in your material and let it go? What do you prefer?
Yeah.
Jade, answer that first.
Okay, I don't know.
Dave, go for it.
Yeah.
I see people, and it's cool to hear them. It's cool to see them. I can deal with it. I actually have a joke that works both on stage and off when things aren't that going your way. It's just, I don't mind. Sometimes I don't do comedy for the laugh. Sometimes I do it for the thoughtful peace and quiet after my jokes. So
it's a good one.
Nice.
I always love the audience. Like, I love seeing them, and it is different when you don't hear the laughs. I mean, I don't necessarily need to see anyone. The laughs are always nice, but then you always have to remember, like, is that person Zoom delayed? Like, are they laughing at like a minute ago joke or like 30-second ago joke? So it's definitely hard. And as we continue to do it, everyone will get better.
Mike.
I would say, in in true IL fashion. I like to meet the audience with what they like to do. I will say the most distracting thing is being able to see, and the biggest difference is being able to see yourself as you perform on stage, which I don't,
Yeah.
I kind of dig, except I get distracted because every now and again I'm looking like, oh, those eyebrows are haunting.
I know the
Yeah,
feeling, Mike.
I get distracted by myself. But yeah, that's really the biggest barrier, probably.
Here's for me, it's boogers. I have boogers in
Yeah.
my nose, and I'll realize it like partway through. So I'll like try to keep my head down, or
Yeah.
it gets messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard. Also, Dave hosts a drive-in comedy show that our friend Mike Pucci does, and like then you start getting like, oh, am I getting honks? I need honks. How come these people aren't honking at me? Because instead of laughs, you get honks and you get lights. And so a lot of feedback is we are experiencing a lot of variation in how people react, and I think that it'll only make us better comics in the long run. Okay, there's another Zoom question.
Did you see Allison's question? I thought that was a good one. Do you think audiences expect you to talk about your disability in your comedy?
Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, okay, but before we get to that, do you guys think this is like after COVID, are the Zoom shows done, or what? What do you think?
I don't know. I would like
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I think this may open up some new possibilities, and also it's increased access for a lot of people who may not go to a comedy club. So it's been great that way too. Okay, so Allison's, which is her question is, do you think audiences expect you to talk about disability in your comedy, and how does your disability interact or not in your comedy routines? Mike, why don't you start?
Oh yeah, word. Nina knows because I'm gonna take the longest to answer this question. No, I do think there is an expectation, and in not a negative way, but I think the older the audience, the more expectation there is for me to address my physical disability, because of the normal that they grew up in. They didn't grow up in a normal where you saw people with disabilities at the grocery store, much less on stage at a comedy club. So one of my like my original mentor in comedy was an improv actor here locally, Aaron Roos. He was the one that helped me get on stage and do my first 20 minutes. He told me right away, he said, in one or two jokes, you should address it, because number one, it's really funny. And number two, it allows the audience to relax. Because believe it or not, people will just, if I don't say anything about it, that becomes the singular focus in their mind. And it doesn't allow the material to really sink in. So if I address it right away and say, you know what, I'm aware of it, and I'm okay with it, let's have a good time. That kind of allows them to be more open to the material that isn't necessarily disability related, which is a majority of my act. So yeah, and it is, I think, in to Allison's question about how does it weave in and out, I really think some of my favorite comedians are people that talk about their perspective. So, in me talking about disability, that informs my perspective. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Much like, Richard Pryor talked about being Black and growing up poor. And so I think one thing that I really try hard not to do is make fun of myself. I think that's the cliche for comedy, stand-up comedy in general, is that you have to be self-deprecating. But I try to draw a line for my material where I'm making fun of the absurdity of the things around me and the position that my disability puts me in. I am in no way putting myself down in order to make you feel better. And if I do that, I've had to find that by messing it up. But if I do that, then I can feel, especially in front of kids. Like I don't want to give the message that yes, but in order to be accepted, you have to start making fun of yourself. That is, something I really like to point out to younger people too.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate you saying that, Mike, because I think people people hear that I'm a stuttering stand-up comic and they automatically assume I'm gonna make fun of stuttering, and I always make sure that they know that I make fun of assholes and not and not stuttering. But I think it's that thing that people always go toward, and I also think that is what separates the comics on this compared to other disabled comics, some of them at least, is where is the issues that we talk about? Is it that we are making fun of ourselves? And I think that's like a very able-bodied view of the disability, but a cultural view or a cultural model of comedy would be making fun of the barriers and the attitudes of the able-bodied culture. And I really think that's an important distinction for academics to look at there. Now, Jade, I wanted to ask you this to make sure that you got this. When you go on to your always very accessible stage and you roll up there, do you feel you can go right into your jokes about sex, or do you have to say something about the chair first?
I guess it depends on my mood. So, I mean, obviously the audience, sure, they will expect disability humor, disability jokes, and my act is inherently a disability act. I don't need to say anything to make it that. That's what it is. That's who I am. Maybe my answer is a little different than Mike's, only because whereas maybe he's trying to relax the audience, I try to keep them as tense and uncomfortable as humanly possible. So
that's why we love Jade.
yeah, and then so if I don't mention the chair or the cyborg body, I think that kind of adds to the aesthetic a little bit. And I don't think I've ever gone a whole set without alluding to my disability, even if it's just very subtle. And if people can't see that, then they're not listening. But I do think that I don't know, when I'm writing my jokes, it's not that I avoid disability references, quite the opposite. But I'm trying to. My goal is to avoid. Number one is to avoid messages that have already been said by other disabled performers. Not because I think those messages are wrong. I support those messages, and I feel like they should be disseminated as widely as possible. But my goal is not to teach. My goal is to entertain. That's just my own personal kind of pathway and relationship to it. So when I'm trying to write my jokes, I think I play with form more, and I'm more interested in the form of what I'm delivering than the content more so. The content's more just something to kind of keep everything together. But yeah, I do talk about disability. I have to. But it's, a comedian is supposed to talk about their perspective, and that is my perspective in everything I do and every way I think. So even if it's not an explicit mention of it, it's gonna come out. Don't worry, everyone.
Now, Jade, you did not take my bait when I said that all of the stages are highly accessible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you want me to talk about what happened? Oh, so yeah, I have.
Or just like the percentage of stages or your experience with access to the stage, because I think
Yeah.
We always talk about how there needs to be more access to the good roles into the Academy Award winning roles. But where does that happen? You just don't get an Academy Award. You have to start on your local stage. So what is that like, Jade?
Well, first of all, I'll say that I agree. It is almost criminal that I don't talk about this enough on stage. I do need to write more about it. I mean, I use a 400-pound electric wheelchair that people believe for some reason can just be lifted onto any stage. And trust me, I don't care about people hurting their backs. I really don't. I care about my $40,000, 400-pound cyborg body getting broken with me in it at the same time. So, I've had people book me on shows that are inaccessible, the building's inaccessible, or the stage isn't. I mean, I'm going to name drop the Punchline because I don't give a fuck. Sorry for everyone who has good relationships with them. But they tried to put me up twice, but they wanted me to perform in the dark corner at the historic Punchline. And I said, I'm not performing in the dark corner. I want to be on the stage. And so they said they would buy a ramp. 2 years later, they were bullied into buying a ramp by Sketchfest. But basically, so that's in a nutshell what I go through when I try to, book show. I went in an elevator once. I won't name drop this club because I think they're no more and they were good in a lot of ways. But I went in an elevator and the elevator went down. I was locked in the elevator for a good 10-15 minutes because the guy who ran the venue didn't know how to unlock the elevator with his key, and he didn't know where his key was. And then finally, when I got out of the elevator, a mirror falls in front of me, glass shatters everywhere, pops my tires. It was so yeah, it's kind of. Oh, one time, my good friend, my good comedian friend, Alyssa Westerlund, we were both on a podcast. It wasn't accessible, of course, so she got one of those construction signs that you see on the sidewalk, folded it up, dragged me up this rickety construction safety sign, and then by the time we were done with the podcast, we found out there was an accessible entrance, but the guy running the podcast just didn't feel like getting the key and didn't feel like opening it. So yeah, I go through. I mean, I guess I do like Zoom shows because I don't have to leave my house and travel 5 miles just to show up and not even be included, And I don't support venues that aren't accessible. It's pretty straight, direct. That's my feelings on it,
Yeah.
You did. I wanted to say something for people. You did something today that I've seen you when you have the means to that you adapt incredibly well. If the venue allows it, you use movement because you one of the things that I love watching you do is where you like move all over the place and you get in audience's faces when the mic allows you to and all that. And today you're doing that even with Zoom by just spinning around in a circle, which I was loving, by the way. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we adapt. Disabled people are good at adapting.
Word.
Yeah, no, and also I think it's interesting that in the Bay Area, I think you're one of the most physical comics because you just like Jade will just pace back and forth on the stage.
She'll bump into your chair. She purposely will bump into your chair, and she'll get up in a dude's face and start hitting on him. Like she does all kinds of great stuff.
Oh, it's bad. This might I shouldn't tell you all this, but so I have been risking my life, and occasionally I did some live shows recently, and my new joke is I just go up to people slightly and I go, "Are you nervous? Are you sick? What's your symptom? Do you have a fever, sore throat?" And I get closer and closer, and the terror on their face. Like, I feel the virus just passing through me into them, and I'm just so happy I get to share so much with people even now.
Beautiful. John, do you have anything to add to this?
You know, I like to just throw in, it's not like it's as inherent, it's like an invisible or intellectual disability, a lot of it. And I like to throw it in there just to make it the norm. Like I start the jokes is because like we all suffer from things. We all have different perspectives. So I almost like every set that I do when I leave Missoula that's not like an open mic is I try to throw in some sort of disability humor one way or another, just so people know and can like, maybe it starts a conversation. Like there's someone else in the crowd that's dyslexic and always had similar views and they'll come up and talk to you about it. Or they have like a lazy eye. I know I've had one person came up to me after like we did a high school and they were like, everyone says my eye's lazy and I need to change it. And I was like, are you comfortable with it? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well then fuck them. Like there's no point. And we had a great way to connect and use that together. So it's like, yeah, I always try to bring it up just to make it the norm, just to make it more normal. And so people understand that we all come from different places.
And Dave, you've performed after you started your recovery journey. You've been in bars, you've been in dispensaries. What is that like for you?
Terrible. No, I'm kidding. It's the thing is I was talking. One of the biggest cliches of stand-up comedy is they talk about drugs and alcohol because for the most part, most comedians indulge in drugs and alcohol. Not, and I say most. I mean, it's hard to kind of really quantify that, but for the most part, it's in the younger or in the newer comedian kind of world. They all dive into drugs and alcohol jokes. I am not an exception. Not only that, people can just kind of look at me and be like, "Oh, he did drugs. Oh, he's probably drunk right now," just based on stereotypical appearances. But once doing stand up sober, when I'm doing like if I do an AA or an NA event, yeah, they kind of want to hear that stuff. But working a 12-step program over time, I mean, probably in the first year, it felt like it was, I didn't put myself in any place initially when I got in recovery. I made a decision, which is the decision that you need to make if you want to really have a program work, is full surrender, put your recovery first. And that was the first time in my life at the age of 37 that I did that and just kind of surrendered so that was my main priority. I didn't even know if I'd do comedy still or anything like that. And then with that being done, everything else figures itself out kind of in a strange way. It's developing a sense of faith in something that I didn't have before, just faith in the unknown and whatever higher power that I have. And then coming to learn that it is deemed legally a disability and whatnot. And I see it, and now I get to be an advocate and help other addicts and alcoholics learn this very fact. Because it's actually come into relevance in the coronavirus circumstance. Because a lot of people think it's like against the law to have a meeting, and it's not. So long as we can abide by certain our own rules, and some still don't. But still, it's the fact that it is an essential accommodation, and it's covered by the ADA.
So there's 2 more questions that we're going to do, and then we will come to an end. And you guys have been very generous. I've been getting Venmo'd over here. Thank you all. And just thank you all for being here and your participation and your feedback. And it's always hard to find an audience, even in the quarantine. And we really appreciate you being here. Okay, so for the comics, do you have any disabled mentors that have helped you as a comic, whether they're in comedy or outside of comedy?
I'll start off, Nina. Well, Michael Beersman actually went to high school, and I was actually 2 years behind him, 2 or 3 years. I don't even know anymore. 2 years, and I watched his senior project of doing comedy, and I always like flagged it as like, that's awesome. And then we had a mutual friend about 10 or 12 years ago that reconnected us. And so I would throw Mike Beers in that boat for me.
Okay. That was sweet.
Very nice.
Thanks, Dave.
As far as, I mean, I'll actually kind of double down on that. Yeah, as far as if you're talking specifically disability, Nina is my mentor in terms of the bridging the worlds of comedy and disability, because I mean, she's the one that kind of not only introduced me. I was kind of already an ally, you know, through just being. I mean, she's just really my friend, and I've learned a lot through just how to you know, how to speak with someone who has a stutter, and then beyond that, you know, learning even communicate. I work with her pretty heavily in other stuff, in editing and stuff, and learning how to communicate with somebody who has dyslexia. And then she's introduced me to the whole disability community, but it's really just being friends. The comedy was kind of doing that anyway. You know, becoming friends with people like Jade and Mike and everything, and just really just learning it's not even really disability. It's like, that's again just one of those things that it just makes them and makes me, and yeah. So
Mike, what about you?
John Howard. No, it has been, in seriousness, it has been great to be able to work with somebody as close as John. And just the aforementioned car rides, we kind of fall down the rabbit hole around subjects like this all the time, and that's been really cool for me. I would say, like, when I first got into it, the name, I would like Chris Fonseca, who's a stand-up comic, I believe from Denver, with cerebral palsy, and Jerry Jewell as well. Were two that I kind of sought out, and found and thought were hilarious. I think the other thing I would mention is there are so many comedians that are my mentors or a fan of, who don't talk about their disability, or so, like, say, a Richard Pryor,
Yeah.
who, I mean, later in his life had MS. It was very visible. But there are, you know, a number of comedians that are well known for how their craft and being stand-up comics, but they themselves don't talk about it because it is non-apparent. And at the time, it was still, like, especially mental health is very stigmatized to this day, but it was even more so back then. You didn't hear a lot about it on stage. But yeah, and there is the Venn diagram between disability and stand-up is pretty overwhelming, or I don't know if overwhelming is the right word, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot there.
There's a lot. Thank you, Nina.
Jade.
God, this question is a setup. Nina G is definitely a mentor of mine. She was the first person I messaged, and I knew I really wanted to get involved in the open mic scene and kind of get my feet wet. I had never seriously done comedy before. I just got to college from high school. So I messaged Nina, and she took me to this terrible dive bar. No one was around. What was it?
The Dorsey's Locker. You should be so happy that you did that place, because it's mostly in African, or it was now in the past tense, but it was mostly African American establishment that a lot of white comics have been afraid to go to. And Jade dropped her first set there and did very well.
Oh, I did well? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, oh, thank you. But no one was there. It was the bartender, you, and like my two roommates. And my roommates were as far back away from the stage as possible. Like, they decided that, I thought they were around the corner for a second. But yeah, Nina definitely, especially in the disability department of comedy, you know, she's kind of my go-to for any questions or opportunities. She's like a mentor in the very classical sense of the word. And then, let's see, and then my aunt, she's disabled. She's kind of works in activism and things like that. And she's helped me out a lot, trying to support my comedy. Another disabled comic, Warhol Kaufman, he's been my friend. He kind of helped me out get because I took a break from comedy in college, and then I came back to it, and it's hard to come back to something when everyone's different. You don't know anyone, and you forgot how to do it. It's like riding a bike. You forget how to ride a bike, and then you're like, oh, I have a friend. So he was a mentor, as much of an asshole as he is. And yeah, it's kind of I don't know. You just meet. I do what my peers said just about how so many comedians don't acknowledge their disabilities, even though most of them are disabled. It's just more of an identity thing, whether you identify as disabled or not. And so I have found more of a bond with comics who do identify as being disabled and talk about it and aren't ashamed of it and don't hide it away. And that's where I found my mentors as well.
Well, and it's interesting that once comics figured out that they could do shows that are disability oriented, suddenly there was a big growth of disabled comics, not necessarily who had that perspective, but ones who wanted to get onto shows. So there was that. And for me, I just want
I know what you're talking about. The invisibility, oh, I won't say it out loud, but that show, yeah. I felt like they were hijacking my shit. I don't know what happened.
Well, and not necessarily the shows, but some of the comics were like, ooh, I can get a 10-minute spot if I say I have depression. Okay. And it's like, yeah, but are you really representing the true meaning of access and activism, which I think makes
not dropping any names whatsoever, but somebody had a disability called nihilism. And I know it's bad, and I almost didn't want to do the show. I almost did not. I lost faith.
Yeah,
Although,
I really appreciate that.
I'm sorry, nihilistic realism. It's a term. Yeah.
It's a term
So anyway.
covered under the ADA.
Is that covered under the ADA? I don't know. I mean, it could be.
No, I mean, maybe someone can put that in the chat, but I haven't seen.
There should have been some standards
at the Supreme Court, so I assume no. I think for me, I think my friends have been my mentors, and me and Dave have spent many a car ride where he has mentored me, and I really appreciate that friendship, and the honesty that comics have with each other. Sometimes they blow a lot of smoke up their ass, but Dave, no, far from it. And also my friend Michael O'Connell, who I said has since passed, but he's the one who started the Comedians with Disabilities Act when there weren't any groups who were celebrating disability, and it really was a place that I've been able to cultivate my voice as a disabled activist and bring that onto the stage, and so I really appreciated that. So let's see, next question, last question is, I think artists help us to envision new ways of being and interacting with each other. What do you hope for the world in 10 years? I'm not going to ask Dave for this first because I'm afraid what he's going to say. So, John,
well, I don't know if we have enough time for my Netflix docuseries that I want to lay down right now and all of my plot points for the future. But let's just start off with, I think that Jade brought up a really good point. The one thing I always notice is more accessible stages. I think that's the number one thing that we actually strive for here at BASE at the same time. Also just more understanding, maybe, and people being nicer to each other, more funding for people with disabilities at the same time. As some of you know, BASE almost closed like 3 times, so trying to keep our little organization alive is always a problem. And just an open mind and being willing to laugh. Now, I'm actually like condensing this a ton because there is so much that we don't have time for, but just like, I would just say accessibility and openness to laugh and not being hateful or mean to each other.
Great, thank you, John. Jade, what about you?
I hope that we will have defeated fascism by then.
That should be first on the list, I think. Number one. Dave, what about you?
I hope we have a functioning post office and hopefully a leader that unites people a little better than some of the things. I mean, that's just as far as the country. I hope people aren't burning to a crisp as global warming, keeps whatever. Again, it's funny. Again, the whole thing. I really try not to really think too much about the future too much, almost to a fault, because future tripping was like a big deal with me when I was still in active addiction. And one of the things that we talk about in recovery, just for today, just kind of being for today. And I really just kind of focus on any day that I just don't pick up and use is a good day. And if I'm having a rough day and I don't pick up and use, that's a great day. Just dealing with the challenges of stuff and not having to turn to that. So I just hope I'm sober in another 10 years. That's all. If I'm alive.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dave. And for me, I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to leave it to Michael Beers to close us out, because I know he always does a great job. I think for me, we can have all the ADAs in the world. We can have all the 504s, all the civil rights laws. But if people continue to be assholes and to exclude us, that is where we really need to work on. And I hope that we can have a attitudinal barrier-free world in addition to a barrier-free world. Beers, bring it home.
Where do I want us to be in 10 years? 2030.
Can you expand on that?
I thought it was an SAT question. I'm sorry. I mean, I would double down on a lot of what everybody has said. For the disability community in particular, and I think as we look forward, to ADA 40, I would really hope that the disability community finds its confidence, individually and collectively. I think and I've had a great discussion with Nina and Dave on some other calls. One of the ADA t-shirts that I have from conferences is in a box somewhere. I have about 30 of these shirts that say ADA on the front, and then the back they say to boldly go where everyone else has gone before. Yeah, and as a young advocate and comedian, I really saw that as like a rallying cry. It was funny because there's a Star Trek reference. But the older I get, the more I kind of cringe when I hear us describe our ambitions that way, because that means, and one interpretation of that is that at our best, we're just what everybody else is, and I don't think we're going to get where we collectively want to be by just striving to be as good or go the same places. It doesn't acknowledge the talents and visions and cool things that we can do that other people want to be a part of. So if, the mindset that we're always advocating to be invited to somebody else's party, I think is one that I hope we work on, because there is a lot of creativity and talent, as we, as hopefully you saw tonight, and have other people seeking us out to be a part of what we've created, whether they have a disability or not. I think would be a cool thing to see more of in the next 10 years.
All right. I knew Mike would have the perfect thing to end on. So please, kid, Give it up for all of your comics. And also all of you as the audience. You have been a wonderful audience. The best way to spend one of the hottest days of the year in the Bay Area is to be in Michigan. So thank you so much, and thank you for everyone's generosity. The information for the donations is in the box. So thank you, everybody, and we will hang out a bit if anybody wants to say hi or if they have any other questions. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was
you,
so
everybody.
much fun. Right, Susan?
Yes.
Good luck out there.
So I want to let you guys know what's coming up this week. So those of you who need more than just comedy, this is actually a really amazing week coming up. So tomorrow, I'm going to actually show a film. It's nothing been announced, but I'm going to show a film that's called Best Boy. It's from 1979, and it's the very first film that I ever saw that made me think about disability differently than I had always thought about it. In 1979, it was very common that people with significant disabilities would live at home forever. And this was about somebody moving out. And it's one of the first things that really sort of led me to change my whole perspective. I mean, I have a son who's born in '83. And so from the very first time, I never thought he would ever go to a group home. I'd already made up my mind that that was not going to happen. And this movie is part of what made me come to that conclusion. So I think it's a great film and everybody should see it. And then on Monday, Scott Cooper is going to be presenting. He has done thousands of interviews of people with disabilities, people from every kind of life with a disability, including comedians with disabilities. And he has done video interviews. He's been doing it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And we're going to work on trying to get some of them out in the public view because he hasn't anybody to edit them for him. But he's going to show you little blurbs of some of the videos, and he's going to tell stories about all these amazing people. And of the videos that he's done, over 200 people who were staunch disability advocates during their time have now passed. And, so this is not a new movement. We've been around for a while, and we need to remember our history. He's going to help us do that. And then Jill Vinn and Chris Smith are going to be here from DisArt, and they're going to be talking about some of their projects, including one that's called making out a dear friend, where people during COVID, what are they reaching out? How are they reaching out to their friends? What do they need that they can't get face to face? And how are they supplementing, their needs through writing, video, other means besides touch? Then Steve Brown, who is here, gets the prize to date for having the most people pre-registered. He's doing one on disability culture, which obviously comedy is a part of. So I'm really looking forward to it, and obviously other people are too. Oh, that's right. You know about Jill and Chris because they told me about you. That's right.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then we're going to have one on self-direction. And what self-direction is, in case some people don't know, is that sometimes people get money from the government to help support them when they have disability. And sometimes they put all kinds of strings on that money so that you can't use it in particular ways. And so self-direction is a procedure where you get your money, you get the same amount of money, but instead of it being tied to an organization that tells you how to use it, you self-direct it. You decide how to spend it. And so we're going to have somebody who's going to talk about how you can make that happen, that you can be in control of your money and not Trump or whoever else is spending it in ways that you don't want. And then we're going to have an evening talking about mental health that discusses the differences in mental health when you don't share the same language, culture, gender, how all those things impact mental health, and how people can be misperceived as having a mental health issue when really it's a difference in where you're at. It's not that there's something wrong with your mental health. It's that you don't share a certain part of your life and that it's a misunderstanding. And then there's other times when mental health just looks very different in different countries or different cultures or different genders. And that there are things that you have to address differently because of that. And then one I'm really looking forward to is on activism in colonial America, which is something until I set this stuff up, I had no idea it even existed. So there were disability activists in colonial America. They didn't call themselves disability activists, but they were there. They were, even then, people with disabilities were being ostracized and sidelined, and they had to stand up for themselves and demand equal access to the new world that was coming. And so this person has done a lot of research in that area. So I'm going to be really excited to hear about colonial activists and what they did. And then next Saturday, we're going to have another virtual dance. I can't be totally honest, I can't remember who the DJ is, but we had a virtual dance 2 weeks ago, and it went really well. If you haven't ever been to a virtual dance, you have one person playing the music, and then you're all in your little boxes, and you all get to dance. Everybody gets to watch each other, and sometimes you can figure out a way to dance with the person in the little box next to you. You know, there's all sorts of little ways that you can have fun. And if you've never danced before, this is a great opportunity to get started because there is no wrong. Everybody, whatever you do is good. And if you want to be kept up to date on what's happening, because we're having an event every single day until September 27th, you go to mi-ada.org. And the other way to find out about it is to buy a t-shirt, which is similar to what's behind me. But if you buy a t-shirt, then you get on a list and I will send you, there's the t-shirt. Laura's holding up the t-shirt. Oh, she's wearing the t-shirt. But I'll send you an email the day before each event, remind you this is what's happening tomorrow, and this is what the meeting ID is, and this is the password. So you don't have to go looking through your thousands of emails. You just have to look at yesterday's emails, because I sign up for Zoom events that are like 2 weeks from now, and then it's like, I want to do it. And it's like, and where is that? Where is it? I can't find it anywhere. So I send out reminders the day before so you don't have to go searching.